In today's video, I'm gonna walk you guys through something that I don't think I've seen before on YouTube, which is deep diving a deal that we did and showing you guys what went wrong with it. Let's dive right in. In today's video, I'm gonna walk you guys through why you should never sell yourself on taking down a flip that the numbers don't work on. Let's dive right in. I realize that I often do these videos for you guys where I show you like how we found the deal, what lists we pulled, what piece of mail we sent, how we analyzed it. Occasionally, we'll even show you the financials on the back end, right? Here's our balance sheet, here's our P&L, here's what we really truly made. I want to do something a little bit different on this video and show you guys why you shouldn't break some of the rules that you have set for yourself. So for instance, in my office, we use the 75% rule. So what a property's worth, 75% of that minus the cost of repairs is the most that I should pay. We didn't do that on a deal that I was actually getting ready to shoot a YouTube video on. And I was like, why did we not make as much on this as we thought? So let me show you what our expectations were, and then let me show you what happened in reality. So we use Resimpli, that's our CRM that we work all of our leads out of. This particular deal came off of our Investor Carrot website. So they either got a piece of mail or found us through like SEO or pay-per-click. Not totally sure on this one. Filled out the web form and that automatically puts them into here. Now I'm not gonna really walk you through like a bunch of back and forth with the seller because that's not the point of this video, but there was a decent bit. 135 texts, 33 calls back and forth. So one thing we do in Resimpli, and the reason why we do this is we always pin our initial pictures before we bought the deal, and we also pin how we ran our numbers. Now, the reason why we do that, the way I can simply do what I'm doing for you right now, look back at these and like, okay, were we correct or were we not correct? So on this deal, little like spoiler, we had something like $350,000 tied up. And when it was all said and done, we only ended up making $18,472. I don't know about you, but that's pretty risky in my opinion to tie up that kind of cash for that small of a return. So let's look at kind of what the expectations were here in Resimpli versus what we netted and why. So quick and dirty math that I always like to do is what we think the property will sell for times like 0.94 minus what we expect to be all into the deal for. So that gives us roughly 6% in selling costs. I'm a realtor. We also have realtor hookups. So I'm not giving all of that to an agent. I'm including some of that as things like closing costs. So on this particular deal, we can see here that we thought the property was going to sell for $420,000. So if I do 420 times 0.94, I can see that has me at $394,800 after like selling costs. Now, obviously this isn't perfect. This is just like quick and dirty back of the napkin math. On this deal, we had the max we should buy it for was 305 to 300 and rehab being 10 to 15. So let's assume we got it for 300 and we put 15 into it. So if I was into it for roughly 315K prior to paying like private lenders, utilities, anything like that, you can see there should have been like 79, 80 grand. It's a pretty solid deal. Now, we borrow money at 9% plus 1 point. So minimum, I'm giving up like 4 to 5K to the private lender on this deal. Even still, right? Even if I subtract out 5 grand, like pretty solid, okay? So let me show you guys what actually happened. So we thought the property was worth $420,000. I'll show you why here in a second. So if I go 75% of that, has me at 315. If I subtract out the rehab cost of that 10 to 15, we can see in here, Noah was accurate of we should have paid between 300 to 305. Now at some point in the back and forth with this seller, it took 160 days to get this thing closed. So what is that? 5+ months. We decided to pay more for the deal. Now that was likely based off of like as is comps, but we broke that 75% rule. So we actually bought this deal for 330K. Now pretty good looking house, if I do say so myself. Like newer, nicer, vinyl villagey, right? I might have even done a video on this deal before, but like pretty clean place. Now, we like to use deal check for like quick and dirty analysis on deals, as well as like double checking numbers. So you can see here, I put in what we ended up buying the place for, which was $330,000. What the rehab costs we anticipated were, which was that 16.5. And it shows that, in theory, we would have been right at like 26K. So what ended up happening on this particular deal was that not only did the property not sell for $420,000, which I'll get to here in a second, but our rehab also ended up costing us more than that 10 to 15K that we initially budgeted for. So why should you not sell yourself on a deal? So this one actually ended up being pretty risky. Now we got away with it in that we made money on it, but I wouldn't say that we were great stewards of our investors' capital on this particular deal. So we had a loan to value of 82.5%, quite a bit higher than the 75% that we typically shoot for. On top of that, if you look at the pictures here, it's a little hard to tell. You might be able to kind of see it from the street, but this place ended up having a roof that passed inspection, but they hit us with it might have a couple years of life left. And we ended up deciding, let's send it and see if we can kind of sell the next buyer on that. Spoiler alert, when you're selling somebody a house for like 400 grand, they're going to expect the roof to last more than a year or two. So that was where we went wrong on the construction side. We budgeted 10 to 15. We ended up closer to 25. But the other issue was we didn't get 420,000. On this one, I think it actually went for right at like 393. Yep, so right at 393,000 was what we sold for. Our all-in costs on this thing, we ended up at 371. So pretty dang thin, right? This ended up being a stupidly good deal for the seller. If we would have got, 420 for it, okay, there's an extra 27 grand. Instead of, 18, we would have made, what's that? Like 45K, solid. But because we didn't get that, if I would have known we were going to sell this place at 393, I never would have done this deal. Now, this is why we do kind of these deal reviews. Where did we go wrong? So, okay, roof was marginal. We knew that going into it and we got called for it. But how did we miss on the ARV by 27K? So if I come down here into sales comps and ARV, we can see that Noah actually was pretty spot on. So there's within, 1/10 of a mile, a comp for 425 in January of this year, a comp for 385 in April, and one in February for 434. All of these, roughly the same size. Our property was actually larger than these particular deals. So where did we go wrong? Well, interest rates rose and have kept rising at the time of this video. So kind of makes sense that they lowered. I don't think we looked at that this closely. I think we looked at, wow, we have some really solid, decent comps here. Looking at those, right? The average is right at 415,000. 420 is not at all out of line on this deal. So what can you take away from this video? One, if you're looking at a property and there's major systems that are near the end of their useful life, so roof, HVAC, right? Things of those nature, just assume you're very likely going to need to fix them in order to get the place to sell for, top dollar. The second takeaway on this thing is we probably should have paid a little bit more attention than we did to what had been selling. Now, typically when we're analyzing deals right now, A, we're looking at this more closely, but B, we're also looking at what's listed and what's pending, because oftentimes that's a little bit more accurate than stuff that sold 5 or 6 months ago when rates were cheaper. The third and final thing I recommend is kind of autopsying your deals like this. it's really easy to tell yourself a story about the business of like, oh yeah, we bought the property, we remodeled it, we sold it for more, we made money. That's great. But was our best use of tying up 370 grand to make 18? Absolutely not. Hopefully you guys like kind of this style of video. I think it's one thing to show you the before, during, and after when everything kind of goes according to plan. I think it's something a little bit different to show you like, hey, we missed on this one and here's why. So hopefully you don't make the same mistakes. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch today's video. Hopefully you found this helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will talk to you guys next time.